Each month, entrepreneurs arrive in the Valley looking to be part of the community that has enabled business success, fame, and fortune for so many. There have been books, movies, and even TV shows about Silicon Valley, but there has been little written about how Silicon Valley works. My name is Jim Connor. Welcome to Game Changers Silicon Valley. Tonight's show is about how Silicon Valley really works and the values and best practices for creating success in this ecosystem. My guests are MESSINA and Jonathan BAER, who have years of experience in working in Silicon Valley and have written a practical guide for entrepreneurs in their new book titled Decoding Silicon Valley, The Insider's Guide. Michelle and Jonathan, welcome to the show. Let's start with an overview of the misunderstanding among entrepreneurs about Silicon Valley.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. We find with international entrepreneurs that come to Silicon Valley, there's a number of misconceptions that they have. The first one is that a lot of entrepreneurs feel that it's very easy to raise capital here in Silicon Valley. They feel that the impressions that have been set out there in the media with television shows, with movies, that it's easy to come here and raise capital within a few weeks. So that's one of the misconceptions that a lot of international entrepreneurs have. The other thing that is a misconception is a lot of them feel that everything here is free, in the sense that service providers, time, mentoring, things like that, all that is free and readily available for them for the taking. So those are two of the misconceptions.
Yeah, and another misconception is there's a misunderstanding of how difficult it is to be successful and how often companies fail. And when we talk about entrepreneurs, Michelle talked about international entrepreneurs, we find that from entrepreneurs here in Silicon Valley, we find it from entrepreneurs from even around the US who do come to Silicon Valley, that the impression they have of what is here is very different than the reality.
And so the impression is that money is easily available.
Readily available.
Readily available. You tell your story over a coffee meeting or maybe lunch. Maybe you meet with people over 2 to 3 weeks, and you should be receiving term sheets shortly thereafter. Is that
That's one of the misconceptions, absolutely.
Okay.
The job of growing a company is very hard. It's hard. It's easy to come up with an idea for a lot of entrepreneurs, and it's easy to create the company, because we make the process for setting up a company relatively easy in Silicon Valley. But the process of growing a company, getting traction in the market, getting a sustainable revenue stream, things like that, that's actually where it becomes a lot more challenging. Mm-hmm. And most investors here in Silicon Valley want to make sure that the company is committed to the US market, committed to US customers, and has a US management team. Mm-hmm. So the misconception about being able to come here, raise capital, go back to their home market, whatever geography it is in, with US-based venture capital is definitely a misperception.
Mm-hmm. So I've noticed over time there are two main groups I see. There's very young people just coming out of grad school. You know, Berkeley, Stanford, they're all graduating every year. And their goal is to launch a startup and get some funding. And then there's more seasoned people in their early 30s, maybe late 30s. That's really where that's where experience resides, and it does seem that that's the more fertile ground for the growth of innovation. And are you seeing that, or are you seeing anything coming out of the universities that would change that perception?
I think we see innovation coming from a lot of different places. We certainly see better ideas coming from a lot of the universities, both in the US and abroad. We see a lot of people who have gotten domain expertise, who have built a base of contacts and built their network, and have significant work experience, who then go out and start businesses. And yet we're also seeing the 18, 20, 25-year-old relatively newly minted graduates, high school and college, who are going off and starting businesses. And so I think it continues to cover a broad range. Certainly experience brings a lot of value to the process, but then again, we've seen people who come with very little experience, but a lot of ambition, and a lot of luck and serendipity, and they wind up being successful.
What are the biggest surprises in your mind?
So what's interesting is that very often people come here and they hear about the fact that it's a meritocracy, that we have open offices, and there's this illusion that everybody is equal. And in fact, you go into a lot of offices and everybody has the same office space. People dress very casually. And so people think that there isn't a hierarchy. And in fact, there is. And in terms of how decisions are made, in terms of compensation. There's another thing that people don't fully understand or appreciate. We live in a coffee cafe culture where a lot of business meetings are held in coffee shops, and there's this air of informality, yet people are actually evaluating you as you're drinking your cup of coffee or adding sugar. What appears to be and what really is, there's a little bit of a disconnect.
Michelle, in your work, are you seeing some of the women's groups? I'm just going to ask that because I know you work across the board. There's so much activity in women entrepreneurs now. Is it the same issues? Or are there different issues there that you see with the men?
I think there's slightly different issues. I think that a lot of women, not only as founders and entrepreneurs, they are also managing their household and their families. So the sort of misconception about work-life balance is a lot of thing that women struggle with, and it's actually not work-life balance. It's more like work-life blend. Is really what it boils down to. But I think also women communicate differently than men do, and so they have to be able to interpret a lot of the communication signs and signals that they get when they're in a room full of business people. Regardless of the gender, they have to listen and learn differently. And so I think women have issues with executive presence a lot of times, owning up to their own value, their own greatness, and being able to stand tall in that, be able to communicate that. So I think women entrepreneurs have a slightly different issue than male entrepreneurs that we see.
Over the years, I've noticed that it seems that many of the people who do come here, the game is raise funding. Let me ask you to comment.
I think we're starting to see more and more serial entrepreneurs, especially in other parts of the world where, 4 or 5 years ago, there were not a lot of entrepreneurs, but now we're starting to see serial entrepreneurs in Brazil and Mexico, places like that, who have some experience, have an appreciation for the difficulty of the process of raising capital, and then the even more complex difficulty of building a business. So we're starting to see, I think, much more of an understanding of what the job really entails. It's definitely not easy being a founder.
What's your sense of the role of the accelerators here in the Valley? Are they doing a good job, do you think? In general, there's some very good ones, there's some middle-of-the-road ones, and there's some that probably shouldn't be doing what they're doing. I want to get your opinion.
The answer is yes. Yes. The good ones are doing a good job. And I think the bigger question, and it's the one that we always pose to people, is: do you go into an accelerator? And if you do go into an accelerator, it's got to be the right program. And if the company is at a different stage, maybe they need something else.
And sometimes entrepreneurs don't know the actual reason they want to be in an accelerator. Right. They haven't identified what they want to get from it, and what they're willing to put into it. And
being an accelerator, just because that's the thing to do, is the wrong reason to be an accelerator.
Yeah. So one of the areas of your book that I found interesting was the idea of breaking rules. Okay. And I'll let you maybe ask you, give me a sense, if you can, or our audience a sense, what does that mean?
So the breaking rules can be anything from how quickly they get something done, or how much they bypass a process, or go around something in the case of perhaps a sales call, instead of just dealing directly with the single person, to bring in a lot of your influencers inside an organization so that everybody's bought into, for example, the product idea. We're not condoning doing things that are illegal. We're condoning basically, move fast, break stuff if you need to break stuff, but get done what you need to get done, which is get traction in your business, get a sustainable revenue stream, and basically grow and scale your company.
There's this great line, I like to say it sometimes, it's better to ask forgiveness than it is permission.
I think that's what we like to see in entrepreneurs a lot of times.
And I think one of the things that happens is when you look at an industry and you're developing a new product, developing a new market, thinking about how do I innovate and how do I break the rules of conventional thought, how do I break the traditional methods of product distribution and marketing, that's another way that entrepreneurs often can break rules.
So I'm going to touch on one more point real quick, and that is the etiquette of Silicon Valley. So there's all these little nuances when somebody gives you a recommendation, how they give you a recommendation. How did you come up with this?
We know it just in our own daily professional lives that when people don't always realize that you're always networking. You're always looking to make new contacts. You're always looking for business or other kinds of aspects of what you're doing to meet other organizations and other people. So that process of networking and how you do it successfully is something that if you're going to live and work in the Valley, you have to not only practice it, but you have to do it well.
Mm-hmm. Let me just get a brief history of how you two got together. You started the book some years ago.
Yeah, I'm a serial entrepreneur and been working with tech companies for many years. Mm-hmm. And John and I were introduced by a mutual friend about 9 years ago.
You're from a venture capital firm, is that correct?
Yeah. I'm a recovering venture capitalist.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of years being an investor and dropped out of the business and actually became a serial entrepreneur, the founder and CEO of 2 venture-backed companies. And after both of those companies had liquidity events, I actually decided to start working with early stage companies.
Great. I'm just going to put it up here. Great book. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
What's coming up in the future for you?
We're spending a lot more time helping international governments understand some of the best practices of Silicon Valley. So we're spending a lot more time outside Silicon Valley doing ecosystem assessments for international governments to help them understand things that will help them stimulate more entrepreneurs, more startups, more job creation. So I think we're going to be doing a lot more of that next year.
Mm-hmm. Well, for our audience, what is the best way to contact both of you?
You can reach us through our website, decodingsiliconvalley.com, and authors
It's at decodingsiliconvalley.com.
Right.
And
Yeah.
This is available on Amazon.
It's available on Amazon in hardcover, softcover, and Kindle.
John and Michelle, I really want to thank you for your time tonight. This has been enlightening. I love the book. I really enjoyed the book,
Thank
and
you.
I enjoyed meeting both of you and learning more about it. And I wish you every success.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
This is Jim Connor. Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of Game Changers Silicon Valley. Each week, we'll address an area of innovation that may emerge as a game changer of tomorrow. You can follow us on our website, gamechangers.tv, Facebook, or Twitter. We look forward to your continued interest and participation in upcoming shows.